Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, this is it!
This is Top Flight Time Machine. I am Andy Hotbody Dawson. Pow, pow, pow.
I'm Sam Nifty Delaney, so what?
Whoa, welcome along. It's the Monday morning episode. You get it on Sunday evening if you're an IFS subscriber. And here we are. We're on the arse end of what's been a heat wave this last few days. You've just been complaining. You described it as hell a few seconds ago. There, Sam.
I am here in my son's tiny bedroom where I've never podcasted from before. I think it's the last room in the house that I've never podcasted from. But for reasons, we are recording this on a Sunday morning, not our usual recording time. The house is busy with family doing family things. The Vita Modular is, and I swear to you, I'm not exaggerating. It is the hottest. It is the hottest space I've ever been in my life.
It's a massive greenhouse. You know.
I once ran out of petrol in the Nevada desert. Yeah. And I was really hot and I started to panic a small amount. It was fine. The Nevada desert is like, I mean, there are quite a lot of bars and petrol stations, so it's not like the worst. But for me, in the undramatic life I've led, that felt quite dramatic. The Vita Modular is twice as hot as that. It's a greenhouse. Desert. I even was scared. I mean it when I say scared. Real fear about having to walk into the Vita Modular this morning to get my microphone and headphones and other podding equipment out in order to set up here in my son's room with a fan on next to me. It's honestly, mate, I'm not built for this physically, emotionally, mentally. Obviously, logistically, none of us are built for it because this country's not set up for extreme heat of this nature. Well, I had 4 showers yesterday, mate. 4 fucking showers. And every time I had one, I was getting out of the shower. And by the time I sort of got dressed, having just got out of the shower. And by the way, Andy, only a pat dry. Only a pat dry. Not a thorough dry. Pat. Right? Barely patted my face and head at all.
Pat on Sam.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lovely pat dry. But by the effort it took to then put my clothes back on, right? Like what few clothes I was wearing, lightweight clothes, right? Then I was like ready for another shower because it had caused me to perspire. It's just how the dog's gone fucking bananas. The dog doesn't know what's hit it because the dog's never experienced like heat before. It's not even a year old yet. The dog is just barking from fear, discomfort, anxiety. Like, what the hell's going on here? I don't understand. So, sorry to start on a bummer note. I'm sure some people will be able to relate to this because the whole country's been going through it.
Well, I mean, some people think that climate change isn't a thing, which I think is weird. But there you go.
Well, people, but life. The thing about all of this stuff, I think, with climate change deniers, I don't want to sympathise with them too much, but I do think that, although obviously I don't agree with them because I'm not mental, but it's not really mental. It's like life is really tough and scary. And the existential threats on top of just the day-to-day small threats to your existence, like the bills you got to pay or whatever, right? The existential threats on top of that are so much to cope with, so suffocating, that sometimes if you can find some sort of loosely convincing theory that tells you that massive threat is actually just a myth, it's just been made up, and someone's got an agenda, then that actually might... And then what you do is you find that and you think, okay, I'm going to buy into that, and I'm not going to dig too deeply into it because on a superficial level, it seems to make sense. And if I just buy into that, then it'll be one less thing to keep me awake, shitting myself at night, because there's a lot of things to shit yourself about. The rivers are full of shit. There's prisoners escaping from prison. The schools are falling down.
Yeah.
Or setting on fire.
Yeah.
Like, literally, there is a lot. Everything's too expensive to afford. And, you know, there's a lot of shit to worry about. And then if on top of that people go, and by the way, the planet's burning, you're
I think, you know what it is?
Hell.
I think our generation and the generation before, like, say, post-war, 1945, everything's generally just been okay. Everything's just bumbled along and it's been all right.
Everything got better. It was like kept everything in broad terms from one generation to the next was getting better after the war. Yeah. It was progress, And then now
this comes along and well, hang on, this is not the life that I've become familiar with. The fact that the planet's about to burn. I don't know anything about it. What the fuck? But I also have very little.
It's weird that everything's going worse. I mean, let's not get too into it. It's depressing. This is supposed to be a podcast that makes people feel better, right?
Yeah.
but it's interesting. But what I would say was, you know, when we were growing up, there was an idea of life and what constituted success and happiness that was presented to us, that was rooted to some degree in reality, right? And what I mean is the kind of lifestyle that was presented to you by American TV shows or television commercials, right? That lifestyles that involved a house, a car, a family, and a certain amount of security and comfort, right? Of a certain level. And it at least seemed to a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people, like something realistic to aspire to, because it was potentially within your capabilities,
within your grasp,
right?
Yeah.
And so, as a result, we might have been like brainwashed into attaching our own sense of self-worth and value to those things, to those aspirations, right? Material things to a great extent, right? And all I think now is that this generation, like our kids, I think they've got it much harder in most ways, right?
Yeah.
But at least the curtain's been pulled back, and they now understand that all of those things, you know, let's be honest, owning a house and having, you know, a job security in the sense that perhaps our parents' generation had it, and all of those other things, right, accumulating wealth, blah, 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 is much more far-fetched. It is not a guarantee. In fact, it's very unlikely for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, that's a bad thing in one sense, but in another sense, it's like, therefore, you have to look at the smaller things in life. You have to look at what is, you know, you have to detach yourself from, you know, marrying your own self-worth or the value of life to those big material things that perhaps we were taught were important. And so what I think is that perhaps our kids' generations might have and might already have like a clearer idea of what constitutes happiness and fulfillment in life than we did. Like we grew up watching Dallas or Dynasty, right? Yeah. For example, or you might have seen, you know, I know I would have seen Mike Baldwin on Corrie and thought, I want the Baldwin lifestyle.
That's who I want to be. Yeah.
I want to be Mike Baldwin. I want a knicker factory and a Jaguar.
And loads of birds.
I want birds, a knicker factory. All this stuff, right? I want to nick the street nerd's wife behind his back. That's like all young men. That's what I associated with success, right?
Well, that was Thatcher's dream, wasn't it?
It was a myth.
Was Thatcher's poster boy.
It was, yeah. It was all a myth, and now kids think, you know, I don't fucking know.
I'm not bothered about having a knicker factory.
I probably won't ever own a knicker factory or a Jag. I probably won't have any car, but who gives a fuck? As long as I can wake up and look at the sun rising in the morning, have a nice cup of tea, watch the cats go by, then I'm a happy man.
I don't know if that's true. I had a very interesting conversation, very enlightening conversation with my son at about 1:30 a.m. this morning because he'd had a couple of glasses of wine.
All the best conversations happen then.
Yeah. You know, 15-and-a-half-year-old, he's on the wine. Added a couple of boozes, and he's convinced that the poor will eventually rise up and assassinate all the billionaires.
Well, because
the gap between the billionaires and the poor is getting wider and wider and wider, and you know, our kids see that in the opportunities we had, they don't have anymore. He says it'll be like the French Revolution again, or it'll be like the Russian Revolution. He says eventually people will have had enough.
There's a couple of films. There's the film by what's his name out of Key and Peele. He did Get Out, and then he did a follow up. Jordan Peele, innit? I'm just trying to remember the one he did. which is sort of like a horror. Let's see what it is. It's Us. It's called Us. It came out in 2019, and it's a good film, but it's a head fuck, man. And that's basically about that. It's about the poor, the disenfranchised, have been living underground, literally underground. And it's about they kind of rise up like zombies and they just start to slaughter the rich.
Yeah.
Not just the super. I mean, like the likes of you and me, the pod
anyone
barons.
with a car.
Yeah. The pod barons, our necks will be on the line, right?
Definitely.
Just because we're from relatively humble beginnings, don't think we're off the fucking hook.
They won't.
Right?
They won't see that. They want to ask for a CV before they come for us.
They won't have time to distinguish. They'll just look at us, right, with our car. I mean, mate, I own over 4 teapots of different sizes. Then they come in my house, go, "What's all this?" And I'll go, "Well, why does any man need more than 1 teapot?" And I'll be like, "Oh, well, you have to see. I know it might seem extravagant, but that one's for when I'm in the house just on my own and I just need 1 cup or maybe a second if I'm particularly parched. And this one is when the whole family here. And this one's for when we have visitors and I may need 6 cups. And this one was a present that has sentimental value." And they go, "I've heard enough. You fucking decadent, self-indulgent leech on society. We're gonna cut your head off right here and now, right? And there'll be nothing I can do about it, and maybe I'll deserve it. But in us, that it's not just your, your fucking billion. It's not just your Mike Baldwins,
exactly.
Right?
I've got 2 dartboards. They come from me, no problem.
You're fucked, mate. It's not just your Jeff Capeses who they're going to be going for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It'll
be even like me and you. And the other film that follows a similar theme, they came out at similar times. I went to see it at cinema, I think on my wife's birthday, right? It was Sorry to Bother You. That was the year before. That was 2018, right? And that's a similar thing. It's about, I think it's set in the future, like in the sort of not very distant future, the near future. Yeah. And everyone's working in call centres. And the idea as well is that these big conglomerates advertise a whole lifestyle for you. So when you take a job with them, they also provide you with your home, your healthcare and everything else. And I thought, this is horribly believable and does not seem distant.
Sound like it,
because as the state becomes smaller and smaller, the richer the billionaires get, the more resistant they are to having to pay anything to the state, right? But, of course, they will still require a healthy workforce, yeah?
Yeah.
And they'll still require a healthy and capable workforce. They can't just afford for, like, the masses, the great unwashed, to just fucking die out, right? Because then who's going to... They need people. They effectively need slaves. But they don't want to give the money. They don't want to give the money to the state to keep the workforce educated and healthy and so forth. And actually, education they're not that bothered with anyway, because they just want a load of mindless dopes really who are physically capable to basically perform the tasks that they need to make their profits.
And nothing more.
And nothing more. So they go, right, if you're left without a job, that's it. You're fucked, right? There is no safety net provided by the state. I mean, we're nearly at this stage anyway. Let's be honest, right?
Well, there's a report last week that said. Sorry, there's a report last week that said social mobility in this country is at its lowest now than it's been in something like 50 years. Or longer.
And it's a self-perpetuating problem because the bigger the gap, right? The more power the people at the top have. More power people at the top have, the more ability they have to say to the state, no, we're not contributing. Why would we contribute to other people's education? Apart from anything else, we're educating people who might then go and work for our rivals, or even worse, might start a company that will fucking threaten our profit margins.
Yeah.
So fuck that. We're not giving you any money to keep them healthy and educated, right? But they'll start providing their own thing. But then effectively you're in a fucking gulag. Right, and anyway, that's what that. It's just believe it or not, that film, Sorry to Bother You, is a fucking comedy. But I didn't find it funny. It did my fucking nutting. And then I saw Us as well, and I was like, basically, I don't know if your son's seen these films, but he should watch them. I think they're much more aimed at his generation than mine, anyway. and
I
he
don't know if
might
you've seen him,
enjoy
but
them.
he's on TikTok and YouTube a lot, and
Yeah.
not everything on there is mad bullshit. But
what I do think that the positive thing though is that it might bring back a little bit more, and I hate to use this word, spirituality. Let's call it that. What I mean is, or it might change our philosophy and outlook on life a little bit more, right? And make us detach ourselves a little bit from the idea of our worth being married to our productivity, right? And make us sort of step back, because that is, I think, how our generation, grew up under Thatcher, etc., and a stage of capitalism that was effectively working in most senses. It was working at that stage, right? In terms of each generation was getting on better, living longer, earning more money than the last, right? And so we were brought up to sort of, even if our parents didn't actually say it to us explicitly, don't you think we lived in a world a little bit where it's like, you are what you can do?
I don't know. In terms of what, like?
Well, like how much, your success might be married to what you do for a living, how much security and safety you can provide to yourself and your family, and I'm not saying those things aren't relevant, but there's more to, you can take pleasure and joy and sort of feel like a good person without those material things.
You can, but at the same time, a lot of people like nice things. A lot of people like treats, and that's perfectly human to like that. And I think to say that people will turn to a kind of a spirituality of, here's the sunrise and a nice cup of tea, when deep down they fundamentally know that they are peasants. And all of their rights and freedoms are being fucking gradually eroded away.
That's true.
I think that's a bit superficial, maybe, but
bit naive.
It was lovely to have that conversation with him, because he's fucking far more switched on than I thought he was.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point that you make. I don't want to come across like naive, like, oh, well, it doesn't matter as long as you can see the sunrise. All I mean is, like, what do we talk about on this podcast? We talk about, a lot of the time, celebrating the everyday shit that can give you a little buzz, even when other things aren't going well. I, with age and the changing world we live in, have become more able to sort of treat life as a succession of small moments than, the fulfillment of bigger ambitions that are based on things beyond my control.
Jalapeño.
Here's a brief but annoying message to let you know that you wouldn't be hearing this brief but annoying message if you were a subscriber to our Iron Filing Society Patreon offering.
For the price of a pint and a St Clement's each month, you can get up to 4 episodes a week, 9 months before the rest of the world gets them. Early access to regular episodes, lots of other marvellous benefits, and there's absolutely no adverts or brief but annoying messages like this that will get right on your tits.
Find out more and subscribe now at tftimemachine.com/ironfilings.
Jalapeño. Jalapeño.
But we're in a really, really, really privileged position in the fact that we don't work regular 9 to 5 days a week. We don't have to sit in the fucking traffic jams on the way to and from work every day, or stuck nose to ear on the tube and all that kind of thing.
Of course, but I'm not saying that everyone lives like me. That's not the point. I'm saying, like, whatever's going on in your life, all you can do is look at the things that you have control over, and you might have loads of shit going on in your life, and most people have much more shit to deal with than me. But the point is that if you can, like, I know, but equally I know and grew up around people who had a lot less than me, but who are sort of probably less anxious than I am, or, less stressed out, because they were able to just look at life in a more straightforward way in the moment way. Not to say that they found it easy to do shit jobs or be poor, but what I mean is that you have to take pleasure from some things in life. And if you're,
but then again, the worrying thing is, you mentioned like something like the sunrise and stuff like that, and they are things that can bring brief moments of joy. But then, by the same token, you've got a heat wave like you've had this week down in London. It hasn't been as bad up here; it's been tolerable here. It's been a few degrees cooler because we're further north and all that. But then, your natural conditions, i.e., weather, are also now up the fucking spout. at certain times of the year and beyond.
You can't go
any
swimming
kind
in
of
the sea.
Comfort.
I used to
You can't,
love.
exactly.
I didn't go swimming in the Isle of Wight this year because I wasn't really there much as usual. I was there a little bit, but it was too hot to be on the beach, and it was too risky. It's too risky to go in the sea. And being in the sea every year, that was for me a moment where I'd like, whatever else was going on, how stressful was, I'd get down to the fucking beach, jump in the sea, feel the coldness, splash about with the kids in the sea for a few hours, and you'd feel fucking great. Now I'm like, I don't know, man. There might be shit in that sea. I mean, my brother was in Menorca once with my cousin, and they saw a turd floating directly towards his open mouth.
Oh.
Thank God he shut his mouth just in time. I mean, this was the 80s, but that was Menorca. Are you telling me now the Isle of Wight is equivalent to 1980s Menorca?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is someone from Sunderland who I follow on Twitter posted a picture from Roker Beach yesterday, and like I say, it was like 27 degrees or something up here yesterday, and the beach was deserted. And I imagine a huge amount of people just aren't going because, you know, going in the sea doesn't feel like an option. It's where that triathlon was a few weeks ago, where 60 people got E. coli a few days afterwards.
Fucking hell, yeah. So unbelievable.
It wasn't proven either way whether it was from the sea that they were swimming in, but I mean, fucking hell, it probably was, you know. And so people just aren't going to the beach anymore. What the fuck? What next?
So my mum was quoted in the Daily Mirror today, or the Sunday Mirror.
What?
Because they were
from
approaching.
This podcast?
No, basically, right. What happened was yesterday in Chiswick, yesterday morning, because there'd been reports of what's his name, right?
His name. Daniel.
I call him Daniel, but I call him the Human Flaviu, right? Because he reminds me of my favourite escaped links, right?
All right, we'll call him that then.
There were sightings of him in Chiswick, right, in the build-up to him being caught. As it transpired, he was eventually caught much further west in a place called Norfolk, I think it is, by the canal. He'd hit the canal, which was a smart idea. Because down by the canal, it's where a lot of... You know where he was near? Where I went to look at that fucking car that was supposed to be... Maybe he's gone to look at that.
Maybe he was a listener of this podcast. And he was on an odyssey to find the car.
He's thought, I've got to fucking get down there and see this for myself. He didn't see it, but he hasn't got my military training.
Yeah.
Right, because he had military training, didn't he? But canal, a lot... There's all sorts goes on down by canals because, I tell you why, they don't have fucking CCTV cameras down there. So walking by the canal can be lovely and it can be a thrill. But it's also dangerous, right? Canals are dangerous, right? All sorts of shit goes on down there. He's headed for the canal for that reason, because it's like a little underworld. It's like one of those cities within a city, like they have in Copenhagen, where they've got, they're self-policing. And there's no cameras, and he thought, fuck me, I could make it all the way to Birmingham from here, because there's the Grand Union goes all the way up to Birmingham.
Yeah, on his cycle path.
I think Rolls-Royce built the Grand Union Canal to boat down parts between Birmingham and London. I think so, but that might be bollocks. Please do not get in touch if that is wrong. Anyway, there were sightings in Chiswick. So my mum's texted me because she knows how into this whole prison break thing I was, and she was into it too. And my brother lives in Wandsworth, not far from the prison, right? So on the night when he first broke out, my brother's street was fucking swarming with old Bill, right? He told me on Friday, I was like, fuck me, I hope this guy keeps going, you know, because I'm so invested in this, right? And he's gone. My brother's gone. He's long gone, mate. Right? So my brother, don't worry about him. He's long gone. And I was like, how do you know? He went, how do I know? Put it this way. He's been gone 2 days, right? He went, there is police outside right now in my street. I'm looking at them, and they're searching through the bushes in front gardens and in bins. He went, if the old Bill are still searching, like literally less than half a mile from the prison, and they're looking in people's bins like he's fucking Oscar the Grouch, right? He has long gone. So at that stage I was like, right. So I was like, okay, great. Then my mum's like, he's in Chiswick. So the whole family were in on it, right? We were like, maybe Pancho's harbouring him. Pancho, right? We thought
possible.
maybe he's harbouring him. And there
could have
was all
took
these
Pancho
different
hostage.
things. What's really Cosmos? We talked on Friday's episode. We talked a lot about the People's Park, right? That park is Chiswick House and Gardens, the one that my mum complains has now turned into a snobby cunt's park. Her words, not mine.
Vegan sausage roll. Yeah.
Yeah, her words, not mine. Right, that is the park where he was spotted. So I'm like, how Cosmos is this? There's pictures of police searching that park. I've never talked about that park on this podcast
suggestion that
before.
he's been listening to this podcast and using it as his guide. You know, he's gone to Chiswick Park to see what it's all about. He's on his way to the canal to look at the car. Fucking hell.
Yeah, Wandsworth where my brother lives. He thought maybe I can catch up with Pancho from the flats. He was down on Chiswick Mall, which is where I go running as well, like down by the river. It was totally in my neck of the woods. And anyway, she's quoted this morning with in the Sunday Mirror, it says local resident Brenda McDonald, right?
Wow.
Was quoted as saying, and she says something. I mean, they must have cut her quote down a lot because I've never heard my mum speak in such short sentences. I mean, there's no way you can get a quote from my mum on anything without her deviating and going on for about an hour.
And using the word cunt.
Using the word cunt, weirdly going on a tangent about the Searchers, right, and talking quite a lot about Frankie Allen, right, and how he's coming round and she's got to decide what to make for his lunch, right. Slagging off her husband quite a lot and talking about her latest diet. No, she went, well, there's been police everywhere, said local resident Brenda McDonald. I guessed it was because of the escaped prisoner, because I heard he'd got out of Wandsworth, which isn't far from here. And then her final quote, which I really liked, she went, they have to catch him because, to be honest, it was silly enough that they let him out in the first place. Silly.
Incredible. Let him out.
Let him out. But also, it's like, Mum, this isn't what you've been saying to me over the fucking text. You've been going, go on, I hope he fucking escapes. Go on, my son. Then as soon as the poor reporter sticks a mic under her, she's like, oh, yes, I hope they catch him. It's silly. They shouldn't let these men escape.
Shouldn't let him out. Oh, man.
Yeah, I was fucking gutted when they caught him.
Well, I think if you escape from a prison, right, and if you manage to stay on the run for 5 days, I reckon your sentence should be cancelled. You've won the game.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come on, fair's fair.
Yeah.
You've gone to the trouble to escape in the first place, which is not easy. And then it's almost like a Channel 4 fucking, reality series.
Well, like Annika Rice said on Twitter, she said, he's done, well, she reckons she did better when she did Celebrity Hunted. But I think anyone who's actually done that, been on the run, and me and you have never been on the run, but we have talked about being on the run and going off grid to a huge extent over the years on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's very much in our top 3 fantasies is to be on the run, right?
Yeah.
And
also to do some time in an open prison.
Yeah.
So the two would be linked, wouldn't they? We'd be in there, we'd do a couple of weeks, and then we'd fuck off over the
Let's be honest,
hedge.
this guy is almost our ultimate human of honour.
Yeah.
He's ticked all the fucking boxes, mate. It's unbelievable. He was in an open nick. He escaped. He only got in there for doing a prank where he made a false bomb and left it on a table in his fucking mate's room, right?
Is that
what
it was?
Because it was a prank.
Yeah.
They're fucking mad. I had to sit my kids down. I literally sat my kids down because they were shitting it because he was supposed to be on the loose near their school or whatever. And I was like, listen, don't worry about it, right? We should be on his side. And they're like, but he's a terrorist. I said, oh, he's not going to be fucking getting out and doing a terrorism straight away, is he?
Yeah.
It's not like if a child murderer's escaped.
I don't think he's even wired for that anyway. There's always got army training. He's a private in the army. He's only 21.
He was exactly.
He's just he's not a Navy SEAL. You know what I mean?
The press were trying to make out. The press were trying to make out they were trying to make out he's Jason Bourne. Right, and he's a one-man army hidden out in Richmond Park, like fucking Sylvester Stallone in First Blood when he's hiding in the woods. By the way, that is a really great Stray Man movie that might be worth deep diving at some point. Right Like, they reckon, oh, yeah, he's up in the woods and he'll be making his own bunker and he'll have made his own bow and arrow just out of sticks and that. And he'll be able to fight the old fucking SAS on his own, just using whatever materials he has to hand, like in the A-Team, right? He was a fucking prison chef at an open prison. He got fucking nicked for doing a prank when he was in the army of making a pretend bomb to wind his mate up with, right? With all fucking shitty wires sticking outside of it. And he's like, ha ha. And they're like, right, you're nicked.
One of his mates was interviewed. He went to school with, I think he said, oh, I could tell you some stories about him. He was a good laugh. He was a prankster, basically. He was always a good laugh. And he said, and you know what? They won't catch him because he's a really fast runner.
That's like something you say about your mate at school, isn't it?
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing in it. They're trying to make it out. It's like it's Raoul Moat too.
Yeah, it's the press got so excited. I had to sit my kids down, right? This is just classic dadding, right? Because they were like, look, it is exciting. We admit that. And it's really exciting. But in a way, we think you're too much on his side because he is a criminal. I said, well, hang on a minute. He's on fucking remand here, right? He's not been found guilty of anything. And they go, well, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, right, sit down. I'm going to tell you about the Guildford 4 and the Birmingham 6 now.
Hey.
Well, you should have seen their faces. They were absolutely bored shitless. But I trapped them. And I told them the whole story, my version at least, of the Guildford 4 and the Birmingham 6. A lot of it's based on songs by the Pogues.
I was going to say there were 6 men in Birmingham and Guildford, there's 4.
Yeah. A lot of it's based on the lyrics of Shane MacGowan and also the film In the Name of the Father, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, which is one of only 2 films I've ever cried at, along with E.T., right? But then I later did read Jerry Conlon's book and realised that half the stuff for that film they made up for dramatic effect. Nevertheless, the Guildford 4 were innocent and they were fitted up, as were the Birmingham 6. So I had to tell them. I had to say, listen, you can't always believe what the old bills say, what the government say, what the intelligence services say. There's all sorts of shit gets made up left, right and centre, right? This bloke, for all we know, he's just a prankster like you or I, right? If they're going to make pranks illegal, then what kind of colourless country are we going to live in? Joyless, a joyless world.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, if Jeremy Beadle was alive today, who's to say they wouldn't have him in fucking Belmarsh, right?
Yeah.
Fucking him with his record of impersonating police officers.
Yeah.
But they'd have him in, what do they call it, where they put you in a room? They'd have him in solitary.
Naked.
And he'd be in there now smearing his own shit on the walls. Poor
with his
old
little
fucking
hand.
Beadle, right? Pouring his shit onto the wall, right? Fucking demanding release. Poor cunt. And actually, thank God he died when he did. And I know that sounds disrespectful, but I wouldn't want... think of the laughter that Jeremy Beadle provided us with over the years. Actually, we saw a really funny Jeremy Beadle prank about a year ago. Someone sent it to us on Twitter, and it was like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'm going to revisit that. But anyway, that's all I'm saying.
Well, there you go. There's another example for you of the erosion of our lives and our freedoms and our liberties as we know it.
You can't prank anymore.
25 years ago, Jeremy Beadle, 10 million viewers every Saturday night on ITV. 2023, if Jeremy Beadle was still around and at it, he'd be naked, smearing his own shit on the wall in fucking Belmarsh. So there. How far have we come? And in what direction?
We're in reverse.
Judge for yourself. We'll leave it there, I think. We haven't done any predictions this weekend because it was International Weekend. And
it was just shitty. Did you watch any of that silly game? I watched a bit of it. I was disgusted. England.
No, I was in the hammock in the garden.
Yeah, don't blame you. I flicked it on for a bit, and all I was left thinking was, thank God Almighty West Ham didn't sign Harry Maguire. Jesus Christ.
I don't get why he was playing. I don't understand it.
And Jordan Henderson. He's gone into semi-retirement in the Middle East. And he's rubbish. I've never thought he was any good anyway.
I'm not interested in qualifiers of tournaments. I'll just give me the tournament. Do it behind closed doors. Yeah. Make it a secret. Just reveal the teams in the tournaments on the first day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I think they should do is they should make young players play the qualifiers. But I mean kids. Right, so all of our kiddies teams play each other to decide who gets the final, and then when the final lineup is decided, then the seniors take part.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's something in that, I guess. All right, we'll be back throughout the week with similarly batshit opinions like that.
Yeah,
and
terrible opinions.
Thought farts, if you want to call them that, in various guises. Thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.